everyone, and we're live for another episode of the Living Better podcast. And today we have one amazing guest. I was really looking forward to this podcast today, my wife and I, and we are with Terry Tucker. He's a motivational speaker, the author of a book called Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. Sorry, I'm French, so sometimes I go on words and I dragged it a little bit. Anyways, and it's such an honor to have you on the show. You've been battling cancer for 9 years. You have an inspiring journey and story to share with us, and you're doing a lot of good right now in your life, despite everything that's happening. So, Terry, welcome to the show. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Matt and Jodi. I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you. I'll give you the kind of Reader's Digest version of me. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I'm the oldest of three boys, and you can't tell this by looking at me in a wheelchair, but I'm 6'8" and played basketball in college. I have a brother that's 6'7" who was a pitcher at the University of Notre Dame. Wow. Another brother who was 6'6" who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA. And then my dad was 6'5". So if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on whatsoever. So athletics,
family of giants,
it was, but my mom was like 5'7", so she was kind of like, you're doing what I'm telling you to do, and it didn't matter how big we were. Mom was in charge anyway. So, but athletics, specifically basketball, was an important part of my life growing up, and I attended college at the Citadel, which is a military college in Charleston, South Carolina, on a basketball scholarship, despite having 3 knee surgeries in high school. After I graduated from college, I moved home to find a job. This was a time long before the internet was available. And I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. So I was all set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree. And I look back now and realize what a knucklehead I was. I didn't know anything about business, even though I graduated in it. Fortunately, was able to find that first job. I was in the marketing department at the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain in Dublin, Ohio. Cool. But unfortunately, I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mother care for my grandmother and my father, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. Finally, my wife and I have been married for over 27 years, and our only child, a daughter, is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. Amazing. And is a lieutenant in the newly formed Space Force, which the U.S. has just formed that new branch of the military, and she's kind of on the ground floor of that. And conversations with her are always kind of fun. It's like, how was work? It was good. What happened? I can't tell you. Okay, good talking to you. I mean, everything's top secret, so it's like can't talk about anything. So. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but that's impressive.
Yeah, it's fun. I always say she took after her mother, got her mother's brains, because there's no way she would have graduated, and she got my side of the family genes. So
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. That's why I laughed up front. Terry.
So I think certainly the biggest challenge of my life, occurred in 2012 when I was diagnosed with this rare form of melanoma that presented on the bottom of my left foot. By the time the cancer was detected, it had spread to one of the lymph nodes in my groin. And because my disease is so rare, we were talking before the show that there's only about 6,500 people in the U.S. that just in the U.S. I don't know what the statistics are for the world that get this type of cancer. So it's pretty rare. It was recommended that I be treated at the MD Anderson Cancer Center, which is a world-renowned hospital in Houston, Texas. People come from all over the world to be treated there. So at MD Anderson, I had 2 surgeries to eliminate the tumor and all the lymph nodes in my groin. And I had a skin graft to close the wound on the bottom of my foot where the cancer had been removed. Okay. And after I healed, I was put on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon to help the disease, to keep the disease from coming back.
Okay.
Interferon, at least for me, was a horrible, nasty, debilitating drug. And I took those weekly injections for 4 years and 7 months before the medicine became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was lucky. I was at a level 1 trauma center for an ER because they were able to stabilize me before they sent me to the ICU. But while I was on interferon, I had severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week. I lost 50 pounds during my therapy. As a matter of fact, I used to joke with my wife that I thought I was pretty skinny, that I could go hang gliding on a Dorito. Kind of one of those things. It was nothing to me. And, I had flu symptoms. I was nauseous. I was fatigued. I was chilled. Even my ability to taste food diminished, and my body continually ached. And this misery, and I did count it up, went on for over 1,660 days. And one thing I learned during all my pain and suffering is that you have two choices. You can succumb to the debilitating discomfort and misery, or you can learn to embrace it and use it to make you a stronger and better human being. And I chose the latter, but I want your listeners to understand that there were days I felt so poorly and was in so much agony that I literally prayed to die. I just wanted out of this life. Each day was a struggle to use my mind to override the apathy and the distress that my body was feeling. And I realize pain and discomfort can beat you to your knees and keep you there if you let it. But I also came to appreciate that I could use my pain and suffering to make me a stronger and more determined individual. I wish I could say this was a feel-good story that, hey, I've conquered my cancer. Unfortunately, it's not. When the interferon was stopped after I had that bad reaction and ended up in the ICU, the disease immediately came back. And in 2018, my only treatment option was to have my left foot amputated. Cancer came back again in 2019, requiring 2 additional surgeries. And then last year, an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle grew large enough to basically fracture my tibia or my shin bone. And that resulted in the amputation of my leg above the knee, right in the middle of a global pandemic. My wife literally dropped me off at the hospital. I was the only surgery that day, no visitors, no nothing. We're going to cut your leg off. So that was pretty daunting. And then further testing has found that I have tumors in my lungs, and I'm currently undergoing treatment for those, but my doctor is not exactly optimistic about my long-term longevity. So, I looked at all that, and I just refused to be a victim to this malignancy. I vowed to continue my fight. I knew the only way that cancer could win is if I gave up, or I gave in to the disease, or it killed me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, thanks for sharing that. That's so much in short.
So real uplifting, wasn't it? Yeah. Let's get everybody.
Let's get this podcast started.
Yeah.
How, before you choose to have this positive outlook, did you fall into a depression? How many dark days, or how hard was it for you to accept and turn that into a more positive outlook? The transition, did it start off, you're just an optimistic person and you were like, you know what, I'll make the most of this, or you had to undergo some sort of inner work?
I'm not, I'm a guy whose the glass is always half empty. I mean, to be honest with you, I was deathly afraid of doctors growing up. When my mother would take me to the pediatrician and I knew I was going to get just a vaccine, I'd wait till she'd get out of the car and I'd lock all the doors from the inside. And this was before there were key fobs that you could hit a button and open all the doors. So she'd have to get the pediatrician and his nurse, and it was kind of a cat and mouse game to get me out of the car. And literally he would throw me over his shoulder and carry me in to get an injection. So, I mean, that's how deathly afraid I was of this. But, I was just like you and the billions of other people on this planet when I found out. I was going about living my life. I had a consulting business. I was working with schools to improve their security, and I was coaching high school basketball. And I had this callus break open on the bottom of my foot, and I thought, well, I'm on my feet a lot coaching, so that's not uncommon. And when it didn't heal, I eventually went to a podiatrist friend of mine. And, he give me the easy stuff, let's put pads in your shoes and all that kind of stuff. And when that didn't work, he said, I think you might have a cyst in there. And he did. He cut out it was a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it. And he's like, seen thousands of these, no big deal, but I'll send it off. And he did. And, 2 weeks later, and I still remember where I was coming out of a FedEx office after just having sent a report to a school I was working with, and I saw his number, my cell phone. I jumped in the car and turned it on. I was all excited, and as soon as I heard his voice, I knew something was wrong. We knew each other, and it took him forever to basically say, I've been practicing for 25 years and I've never seen this form of cancer. And I'll tell you, that scares the hell out of you. It's one thing to say, hey, you have lung cancer, you have breast cancer. Okay, we know what to do with that. Now, I've been a doctor for 25 years and I've never seen this. That was something that was pretty scary. Absolutely. So, I fell in, I don't know if I fell into a depression, but, I was angry. I was depressed. I was afraid. And I kind of went through all the emotions. And literally what I did is I called a friend of mine who at the time was probably 95 years old. He was in World War II. And his name was Bud. And I said, Bud, here's the deal. And he just listened and I vented. And kind of after I vented, it was like, all right, let's get to work. It was just kind of a change. And I now today, and I'm looking at it right now, I have a Post-it note on my desk.
Yes.
And that Post-it note has 3 sentences on it. And I'm contemplating a 4th one, but I'm not there yet. So I'll give you these 3.
Go for it.
And the first one is, you need to control your mind or it will control you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And the second one is, you need to embrace the pain and the suffering in your life and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And the third one is, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And that's my mantra. That's what I live by. And recently I had a nurse, because this clinical trial really wreaks havoc on my body, had a nurse come in and say to me, and she was a young lady, and she said, Terry, look, this is kicking your butt. None of us would feel the least bit upset if you said, you know what, I'm not doing this. I can't do this anymore. And she doesn't know me, she doesn't know kind of how I live my life. And, if you look at those 3 sentences I just gave you, I looked at her and I said, her name is Sarah. I said, Sarah, you don't know me. I said, they may pull me off the study for whatever reason, or I may die on this clinical trial, but I'll never quit this trial. It's just not in my makeup to quit things. And I think, Matt, this from being in law enforcement and stuff like that, we're going to win. It doesn't matter what happens. We are going to win.
Yeah, exactly.
And that mentality just kind of permeated when I got cancer.
Wow.
No,
that's so
incredible.
interesting. Go ahead.
No, I know. That's unbelievable. You're such an inspiration. I can't believe that. So I guess how long into that journey when I guess you decided to actually then help others and use all this amazing inspiration that you have and this strength and to help others and start your book and
your website
and all those things? Like, was it step by step? Like, let's go in depth with that.
Yeah, it really was kind of step by step. I remember laying in bed after I had my foot amputated, and I had quite a bit of time to heal, and I wasn't really going anywhere, certainly not very fast anyway. And, I remember laying in bed, looking up at the ceiling, kind of looking at God, like, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? And, there's an old joke that says, when we talk to God, it's called prayer. And when God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So, I was kind of looking for that, I was looking for the heavens to open up and say, Terry, you will do that, but that never happened.
No.
But the way it did happen is people were in my life and they were making suggestions. Hey, you should try this. You should do this. And I'm old enough that I'm lucky I can turn my cell phone on in the morning. So putting a blog together was incredibly daunting. It was like 4 pages. And I know my daughter could have probably done it in 10 minutes. It took me like 4 months, because I would get on and I'd be like, I don't know what that means. And I have to go research it, and then come back and, I did. Well, I don't know what that means. I have to go. So it literally took me 4 months to put 4 pages together. And I chose the title. The title is Motivational Check. And it was something that when we were in the police academy, and when I was in the police academy in Cincinnati, Ohio, our defensive tactics instructor, anybody could yell that out at any time. And it was just, hey, I'm hurting, or I need help, or I need motivation. And we would all respond as a class with 84, which was our class number. We were the 84th recruit class, just to let the person know that, hey, you're not alone. We're here with you. We're here to help you. We're hurting just as bad as you are. Don't quit. Don't give up. So I thought, that'd be a great title for this blog that I'm putting together. And the blog is pretty simple. I put up a quote for the day. I put up the Monday morning motivational message with a video or a story, something quick, something short that people can go to, because I know people are busy and they want, quick inspiration, quick motivation, and boom, you're on with your day.
Totally.
So that's kind of how that happened. The book, how did the book happen? That's a great question. I mean, I really feel the book was, I wrote it, but it was inspired by God. And the book really kind of came about based on two conversations. One was a former player that I had who had moved to the Colorado area where my wife and I live with her boyfriend after college. And we had dinner with him a couple times. And I said to her, I'm really excited that you're here in town and I can kind of watch you find and live your purpose. Aww. And she got real quiet and she kind of looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is?
Wow.
And I said, I don't know what your purpose is. That's what your life should be about.
It's figuring that out on your own. Exactly.
You should spend your life trying to find that purpose. And once you find it, you need to live it. And I reminded her, I said, there are people, and I was not one of them. I don't know about you guys, but who, I know I'm going to be a doctor. I know I'm going to be a lawyer. I know I'm going to follow in my family business or whatever it is. They know what they're going to do. I didn't. And I said, then there are people like Colonel Harlan Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, I don't know if that was his purpose, but he didn't start Kentucky Fried Chicken until after he retired. He was in his 60s. I said, so, you could spend your whole life looking for your purpose. But the key is don't stop looking.
No.
Don't give up and say, I'll settle for where I am. So that was one conversation. And then I had another conversation with a basketball player at the Citadel who connected with me on LinkedIn and said, hey, can you give me some ideas about things that I need to know that will not only help me be successful in business, but also successful in life? And I thought about it for a while. I didn't want to give him the work hard and show up early and all the other garbage. Not that it's garbage. It is important. But I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to kind of get into his soul. And so I started writing stuff down. And eventually I had these 10 principles. And I started thinking, well, I've got a life story about that, or I know somebody who has a life story about that. And so that's really kind of how the book came to be. And so that's pretty much how the website showed up and how the book came to be.
Yeah. And I look at your website and it's really, like you said, short and quick. And you have all those quotes and all those nice inspirational sentences. And no, it's very well made. Congrats on that. Seriously. It's
thank you.
Yeah. And you're saying to look for your purpose in life and stuff. And I wanted to add on that as people are going through that, they have to embrace the journey. Otherwise, they're not living either. So, some people will go about their whole life saying, what's my purpose? I'm lost. I don't know what. Okay, well, while you're figuring that out, embrace the journey you're in, embrace your struggles, embrace your experiences. And all of those combined is what it's going to ultimately make you find your purpose in life. So you have to embrace it. And I think that I wanted to add that because otherwise people can get stuck on this one idea. What's my purpose? And because it doesn't come quick enough, they're missing out on 5, 10, 20 good years that they can spend quality time with their family, help people around, whatever it is. So I think that not getting stuck on that idea yet, knowing it's out there and embracing life as it comes will lead you ultimately to that, either sooner or later.
I totally agree with you. And really that's kind of been my purpose, since I've had cancer, helping people find their purpose, or, some people call it their why, why are you here? And I recall a quote from Mark Twain, who said that the two most important days of our lives are the day we're born and the day we figure out why. And when I speak to groups, a lot of times I'll ask people this question: do you have any idea why you were put on this earth? And sometimes I'll take it a step further and ask them, do you know why you were born at this time? Why weren't you born 5,000 years ago or, 50,000 years into the future? There's a reason that we were all born. And that reason involves finding and living our purpose. And I believe we're all destined to live uncommon and extraordinary lives. And that has nothing to do with the type of job we have, how much money we make, what kind of house we live in, nothing like that. Okay. We're not all born with the same gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming. The problem is that most people take an unintentional approach to living. And Matt, it's just exactly what you were saying. I'm just whatever, learn to appreciate what you've got. And by living a casual life, their dreams, their goals, their ambitions, whatever it is, they become a casualty of that unplanned living. I've had plenty of time to think about my own death during these 9 years that I've been battling cancer. And after I die, I can't imagine standing in the presence of our creator, whoever or whatever you believe that entity to be, and being unable to account for the gifts and the talents that I was born with and that I didn't use to make this world a better place. There's a Native American Blackfoot proverb that I absolutely love, and I'd like to share with you. And it goes like this. Of course. It says, when you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. The only way to find your purpose is to search it out, to try things that make you uncomfortable, to fight against the status quo, to experience things that, quite frankly, scare you. Finding your purpose or your why is essential because it's the reason that we were all born. And the only way to discover that reason is to be open to it and search for it with your heart.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And I think that, a lot of people, when they look for that purpose, per se, what happens is that they stay comfortable, like you said. They're not getting out of their comfort zone. They're not experiencing the world. They're not either. It could be traveling. It could be going to a new group of an activity you've never tried before. It could be anything that's just going to broaden your horizon to how beautiful and enriching life can be when you just get out of your comfort zone. And when you stay comfortable, you're not growing. So if you're not growing, like Tony Robbins was saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. And that's very true for most people. If you just remain the same, just dwelling over the same stuff, not turning it into something positive, not trying to move forward, you're going to stay there. And then 10 years, 20 years from now, you're going to be at the same exact spot. And I love your story because your story is an ongoing battle
every day.
It's something that you do every day. It's not that story of like, oh, I'm a cancer survivor and everything's fine now. It's through the struggles and without even knowing the outcome. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen to you in a month, 2 months, a year from now, and that doesn't scare you anymore.
It doesn't stop you either, right?
And it doesn't stop you. And you're creating.
No, I'm going to die. I mean,
we all die anyways.
And that's just it. And that's what I was going to say. Everybody dies, but not everybody really lives.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do. And, and I think that's what you guys are trying to do with your podcast. You're trying to make a difference. And, and if I can do that, like I said, when I stand in front of our creator, when this is over, it's like, I did the best I could with what I had.
Yeah, no, exactly. This podcast got created a little bit like you is after my dad committed suicide and I fell into a depression. And I worked hard on overcoming depression and starting to get better. I was looking for new projects, new ways to give back to the world. And I created this podcast called the Living Better Podcast. It says it all right there. And the idea was just to bring inspiration, ideas, different people with different views, services, anything I could dig with Jodi that would help people overcome whatever they're going through, or at least offer them new horizons, like I said, of things they can try or they can go to. And I mean, going through your story and you having that positive outlook, how has that made a difference in your family and with your wife, your relationship, and with your daughter, since you didn't dwell on that? And like, you're just talking to you, you're like a positive, outgoing guy. Like it's so authentic, and you carry that vibe in your day-to-day life. So I'm sure for them, it has made it so much easier to accept what you're going through.
Yep, absolutely.
And I would totally agree. I mean, I deal with physical pain all the time. I can deal with physical pain. I mean, I've learned to take physical pain, turn it inside, whereas most people, we know our brains are hardwired to seek pleasure and to avoid pain. It's like, pain, nope, got to get away from it. Yeah. For me, it's just the opposite. I turn that pain inside and burn it as fuel or use it as energy, to keep going.
Yes.
My wife and daughter, my wife is pretty tough. She's of Norwegian descent. And we made a conscious decision when I got cancer. Our daughter was in high school, that we would never lie to her. I mean, we would tell her the truth, obviously age appropriate for, what she can handle. I mean, now she's an adult, and she's very involved in this. It's funny when I got the diagnosis that the tumors were in the lungs, I was pretty much, I've had a good run. I'm not afraid to die. I don't really want to go through all the junk that chemotherapy provides. I don't want to do that. Well, I came home and I talked to my family. So we had a family meeting. I was outvoted 2-1. It's like, no, you're going to do chemotherapy. And I did. I mean, we've always, we're in this together. We're a family. Yes, I have cancer, but so do they. And one of the things that has always bothered me is, and I've done it, and you guys have probably done it. When somebody's having a surgery, or Joe, you're going into the hospital to have a baby. Hey, if you need anything, just let me know. That drives me crazy. I mean, that is the biggest cop out in the world. Okay. And I mentioned my 95-year-old friend, Bud.
Yeah.
When I had my first operation at MD Anderson, and I came home, I was home that day. I did not need to stay in the hospital. My cell phone rings. I've been home half an hour. And here he is. He's like, hey, can I come over for a few minutes? I know you just got home. Sure, bud, come on over. And he comes over with a fully cooked chicken and a pan of Danish for breakfast in the morning. And he's like, here, you got dinner for tonight. You got breakfast in the morning.
Amazing.
He didn't stand on the sidelines and try to convince himself he was playing in the game. The things that you need done at your house when you're having a baby, the garbage has got to go out, or the dog's got to be walked, or we got to go to the grocery store. Those are the same things I need to have done at my house. So you know what? When you're going to the store, pick up some groceries for you guys too. Don't tell me, hey, if you need anything. I don't have time to think about what you can do to help me. I don't have that time. Just do something. Get involved. Hey, I'm going to cut your grass while you're at the hospital, or I'm going to take your garbage out tonight, or I'm going to bring your garbage cans in. Whatever it is, don't do that. Hey, because it gets you off the hook. Hey, if you need anything, let me know.
True.
You're off the hook. No, you're not.
So true.
No, you're not.
No.
If I love you guys, if I care about you guys, I want to get involved and I want to help you. So I hope people will do that, because that's the one thing that really bothers me is when people, I just laugh when they say, hey, if you need anything, let me know. Yeah, good talking to you.
It's more of like, if you want to get involved, surprise me with anything. I'll be happier than whatever,
Exactly. And that's so,
again, actions always speak louder than words, right?
You're right.
So, don't talk to me, show me, and I think that's when you really realize, again, the people that you surround yourself with are who the people that, you should and you shouldn't, and who are real to you and who are not really real to you, you know?
And I'll tell you, when you have an illness or you have a baby or you have something like that, I mean, you'll find out the people who are
real quick,
really important in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just went through a year of that, having to set up boundaries and, reestablishing space for our relationship and stuff. Because being a helper, and I mean, we with this podcast and stuff, just in our regular lives, we're helpers like you. We try to help people in this world and relatives, friends, whatever. But it can suck up some energy out of you, and they leave you dry and depleted after a while if you don't allow yourself to have boundaries to recharge.
You're right. Yeah, you got to take care of yourself.
Yes, and the line of work that you're doing, what's your experience in regards to that?
Yeah.
I love people. I think, that kind of goes back to, to being a cop. If you don't like people, you're not going to be successful in that kind of environment.
Absolutely.
Sure. You need to, and I always, even people that I arrested for really bad crimes, I want to know, what's your story? What are your goals? What are your, that kind of thing. And the sad part of that, especially with young minority men, is they didn't have any goals. They didn't have any dreams. They didn't have any desires. And how do you go about your life when you don't have that? They thought they were going to get, one drug dealer was going to kill them and take their, territory and stuff like that. So, for me, I just like people, and being around people energizes me. And you can tell I love to talk.
Yeah, I love it.
One of the things I did when I was in law enforcement is I was a hostage negotiator on the SWAT team. So we were dealing with people, if you were talking to us, you were probably having the worst day of your life. And we had to understand. And one of the chapters I wrote about in my book was about listening, not listening to reply, but listening to understand. What are you, not what you're saying, but where's that coming from? And when you're a block away talking to somebody who's barricaded in a house, you don't have the luxury of the visual clues that people give off when they're right in front of you. So you're trying to understand a person just over the phone. And you become good at, well, that's what they said, but it sounded like this, or it sounded like that. So anyway, I'm kind of getting off track for your question, but people energize me. So that's one of the things. And being tall and big and that kind of thing, I can pretty much put up my own boundaries and people are going to respect them just
totally. You're right.
Because we're big,
Yeah. Just by the way that you physically
that's
look,
an
they'll be like,
advantage.
yeah, it is totally.
It is.
Yeah. And I guess because, I love that you said getting deep. A lot of people, I think, have a hard time getting deep into conversations and getting vulnerable and, really figuring out that why. Where do you think, because where does that come from within you? Why do you think that you're able, or you were able, as a young child, to be able to get deep with people right away? Even criminals yourself, you ask them, you figure out why. Do you think you were born that way? Or do you have somebody that inspired you at a young age?
I mean, my father was kind of my hero in a way, but I look back as an adult and I always felt my calling in life was to be in law enforcement. Well, my dad's father was a cop in Chicago during the days of Prohibition and the gangsters and Al Capone and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And was actually shot in the line of duty with his own gun.
Oh my God.
Not serious. He was shot in the ankle. It wasn't, but he was still shot. And my dad remembered the stories my grandmother told about the knock on the door from the command staff saying, Mrs. Stucker, grab your son and your husband's been shot and stuff like that. So my dad was always my hero, but my dad was trying to direct me in a direction that I didn't want to go.
Okay.
And I was wanting to go one way. He wanted me to go another way. Like I said, he was 6'5", he was 250 pounds. You never said no to my father, kind of thing. He was the boss after my mother.
Yeah.
And so I waited. I did what every good son did. I waited till he died to follow my dreams, So,
wow.
He was definitely somebody that
was
important to me.
Okay.
But, it's funny. I just read a book called Legacy, and it's written by a man named Kerr, and it's about the New Zealand national rugby team, who, by all accounts, is probably the most successful sports franchise in any sport in any country ever. And they talk about what makes them successful. And one of the things they talked about was humility. I sit up here and I preach all this stuff and stuff like that. I don't have all the answers. Sometimes I don't know what the answer is. Sometimes I'm just as scared as you are. I'm just as nervous when I go to, don't think that I have a big S on my chest and a cape. I don't. But I think it's important to be humble and to let people know, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that right now. Maybe that's something I'll think about and I'll come up with later. Maybe it's something you'll come up with, but I don't know. And I don't want to sit here and preach to an audience and say, I got it all figured out. I don't have anywhere close to it being figured out, but I know what I know right now. And so I can take that and I can, through the help of people like you and put it out there and say, does this work for you? And it may not. It's like people are not always like us. I am a pain in the butt to my doctor. I ask a million questions. There are some people like, you're a doctor? I'll just step back and whatever you want me to do, that's what I'll do. That's not me. And I'm sure my doctor gets kind of ticked off at me at times, but there are people who just turn everything over to the doctor. I don't want to be that person.
Nope,
that's just not me.
Yeah. So what I like to ask to people like you that are so inspirational is, what drives you in the morning? What's your routine like on a day-to-day basis that keeps you going with that drive and determination that you have?
I mean, a couple of things. One, I pray for about an hour every morning, and that is important to me. I try to do it every morning. There are times, obviously I can't, but I try to pray every morning. And I don't, honestly, until recently, I really haven't prayed that much for me. I mean, I do every day, every morning, every night, I ask God, give me a miracle. Take this cancer from my body. Again, I always tell people, are you worried about dying? I'm like, dying way above my pay grade. Nobody's paying me to like, when are you going to die? How are you going to? That's already been determined by somebody much more powerful, much bigger than I. But I pray every morning. I pray for other people, and I find that if I spend my resources on others, on helping others, whether it's a friend of mine who's going through a cancer situation right now, who's newly diagnosed, or whether it's it's somebody. I had a nurse the last time I was in treatment who said, you don't know this, but she took care of me the very first time I ended up in the infusion center for my drug. She had just come to the unit, and she was kind of in training about how they do things. She's been a nurse for a while. And she said, I was depressed. I had lost a good friend of mine. I wasn't sure this is what I wanted to do. I talked to my mom and dad. I was going to quit nursing. I was going to go to work for Amazon. And she said, and then I met you, and I heard your story, and I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Now, you may never know. If she hadn't told me that, I would have never known that.
Yeah.
But that certainly made me feel good. So I just like folks like you don't realize what an impact you have on other people. No. You may never know.
No.
Your neighbor may think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it cuts you out every time they see you.
Yeah, so right.
Yeah. You just never know the impact you have on other people.
Yeah.
So I always remember that. I always think about that. So praying is very important to me. I read a lot.
Okay.
I remember reading somewhere that the most successful people spend up to 10 hours a day reading.
Yes.
Just reading. That's how they become successful. And I also, and I don't say this very often, especially now that I know I'm probably coming to the end of my life. The word no is a really good word in our language. People always want you. I want your time. I want your. Sometimes you just have to say no.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that podcast.
And you don't need to say why either.
No,
you know what I mean?
You don't.
It's just no.
No, I just no. I had there was a woman when I was before I became police officer. I was in healthcare for about 10 years.
Okay.
Not on the patient care side, and the patients were very happy about that. On the administrative side, and this woman was 33 years old. She was the chief operating officer of an 1,100 bed hospital, 5,000 employees. Super nice person, and I got to work on a project with her on an ongoing basis, and we've continued to stay friends. And she became the president of the Henry Ford Health Systems in Detroit, and here in the U.S. had done some things in the Obama administration to help with the veterans, and just a super nice person. And I say this, and kind of like, oh, this is something different. She's gay, and she's always been gay, and she's proud of it. And
good.
And she and her wife are super people.
Amazing.
But she was definitely exploited. She was definitely I don't know what the word I'm looking for. She was put down for being that way, and still managed to rise up. But one of the things I learned from her, people would ask questions, why don't we do this in the hospital? Why don't we have this procedure or this piece of equipment or whatever? And sometimes the answer for her was, no, we're not going to do that. And it wasn't like, I'm going to study it to death, or I'm going to put you off, or I'm going to do whatever. It's the answer's no. And I'll explain to you why the answer is no. but people appreciated that. You know, you're not like, oh yeah, we'll put a committee together to study that. No, you won't. They won't do anything. You're just passing the buck. She was somebody who I learned very early on that sometimes the answer is just no. Like you say, Jodi, you know, and you don't have to give a reason.
No.
It's your time. It's your life, you know, and that's important.
No, I think that's a very important point. It's a lesson we learned in, like I said, the past year, to just set up boundaries and say no, because you know, when you say yes, you don't explain why. It's a yes and that's it. But when you you say no, sometimes like it seems like you have to justify why, and you don't. You really don't need to justify why it's a no. It doesn't fit in your schedule today, or you just don't feel like it. Well, by saying no, you're authentic. Instead of committing to something you're going to half-ass or not even be
you don't
into,
even want to do it.
No. So the next time you're going to say yes, at least your mind's going to be into it, your schedule is going to allow it, and people are going to appreciate that. And the more you're going to cultivate that in your life, the more authentic you're going to become, and people will appreciate, like you said, they'll appreciate the no and they'll appreciate the yes, and they will respect you for both of those without questioning them, because you're just, you know, you're setting up your boundaries, and when you're there, you're dedicated, and when you can't, and they respect that. And that's a very valid point, very like something our listeners can take with them today, and just try to implement that into their life more, because like you said, it's your life. You have a limited amount of time, at least physical time on this earth, from what we know, before you go into other realms of whatever it is, the afterlife, whatever people believe there is afterwards. And time in the physical world is precious. You know, it doesn't, you don't go back in age, you don't go back to yesterday. So when you live a life with the meaning and the intention of going by what you want to do and what you want to give back to the world, it aligns your purpose a lot better too, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and another valid point that you brought is embracing pain. And I think that a lot of people have struggled with that, and they don't understand the power of pain, the power of suffering, and how transformational that is. And that you can, when you're actually in pain, going through either, let's say you want to be sober, you're an alcoholic. Well, trying to get sober is going to be painful. And then they try and it's painful and they go back to drinking again. Well, why are you going back to drinking? It's because you don't want to be willing to embrace the pain to get to what's better afterwards. You know, Olympic athletes, they suffer so much in their training to get that gold medal, but they embrace the pain, and that's how they build faster muscle, faster time, whatever. They become more, you know, competitive with other countries, whatever. They put the time in and they embrace the pain. And that's how they achieve their goals. And I mean, that's such a powerful thing, to embrace the pain. And in your case, how did you come about embracing your pain and using it as a motivation? What clicked in your head?
I don't know.
Okay, next question.
I mean, I've been asked that before, and I wish I had, you know, I could say that this, because like I said, I was the biggest baby in the world I'm getting one shot. I mean, there are times when I go for my treatment, you know, especially when you're on a clinical trial. So it's a study where I'll get stuck, you know, 10, 12, 14 times a day, you know, and you're like, how do you do that? It's like, you just do it. You know, as we talked before, you know, it kind of goes back to the impediment of living an uncommon and extraordinary life. And that impediment is us. You know, we all know, and we just talked about that, our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. To our minds, the status quo, it's comfortable, just leave me alone. You know, I don't rock the boat, everything's good. You know, I mean, let's just take an example. Somebody looking for a new job. We all know people who are stuck in dead-end jobs. They should have been working somewhere else years ago, but for some reason they stay put. Why is that? And I suggest it's because every time you decide, they decide, or maybe it's you, to find new employment, their brain kicks in and starts pointing out all the reasons they should
why
just
not
stay where they are. You know, you're making good money, you understand the work, you know, routines here are easy. And you know what? You go somewhere else, you might not get along with your coworkers. Whatever the reason, to the brain, a new job presents all types of uncertainty and uncomfortableness. If you're in a position that you can't stand and it would make sense for you to explore new opportunities, your brain is going to fight you on making that change.
Yep.
And I devoted a whole chapter in my book to just this one last sentence. The problem with most people is they think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. I know I've done it. You guys have probably done it. You know, I'm scared. Yeah, I'm scared. I'm not going to make that decision. No. You know, we don't like to live in an uncomfortable state, but that's the only place. And Matt, you said that, where real growth can occur.
Yes.
You know, when I was coaching high school basketball, I used to constantly remind my players that they needed to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And as such, I'd move players in and out of drills during practice that I knew caused them anxiety. I wanted them to be uneasy, not because I was trying to get them to fail, especially with kids, but because I wanted them to realize that they could succeed at something that made them apprehensive. The only way you can grow, the only way you can push past those comfort zones is to do what you find unpleasant and frankly undesirable. It's in those painful, challenging, and sometimes embarrassing moments that real growth can occur. Now I'm going to really date myself here, so please don't judge.
No, of course not.
In 1976, there was a United States gold medal Olympic swimmer by the name of Shirley Babashoff. And she had one of the greatest quotes that I ever heard. And this is what she said. She said, winners think about what they want to happen, and losers think about what they don't want to happen. Winners can override their brains and focus on the things that they want to occur. Losers focus on the negative aspects of competition, and they can't see the positive qualities of pursuing a goal or a dream. I try to put this, and I'll kind of end this little segment with this. I try to put this in an easy concept that people can understand. If you were to go to a gym and pick up a 10-pound weight and you did 10 arm curls, but you didn't find that movement difficult, then your muscle is never going to grow. However, if you go to that same gym, pick up that same 10-pound weight and do arm curls until you exhaust that muscle and can't do another repetition, then what are you doing? You're stressing that muscle. And as a result, it will grow and it will get stronger. That same tactic works with your mind. If you stress your mind by doing uncomfortable things, it will grow, it will develop, and you will become a stronger individual. So I guess to answer your question, Matt, the only way I really did is I just kept doing it. You know, I kept having that pain come. And when the pain came, I didn't run. I stood up to it and I'm like, I'm going to handle it. Give me more. You know, I need more fuel. I need more energy. Give me more. And eventually you get to the point where it's only pain, and it's only pain for now. It will eventually end. But if I quit, that pain will last forever.
So true.
Exactly. No, you're totally right about it.
True.
And in the work that you're doing, motivating people, what are patterns that you've noticed with people that are repetitive?
That's what I was going to ask. Wow. You're reading my mind.
That's why we're married.
That's why you guys are married. You know, it's got the mind meld thing going.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah. What are the patterns that are repetitive, and how, in your experience, do you overcome those patterns?
So I guess the reason that we're held back has everything to do, as we said, with what's going on in our brains, in our minds. But we continuously look to place blame on things external for our lack of success. You know, we want to blame our parents or our teacher or our status in life. Most people never take responsibility for their own success and happiness.
Or struggles.
Or struggles. You're right. We are our biggest impediment to success. And I remember when I was growing up, I was a big fan of John Wooden, who was a basketball coach out at UCLA in California. And this is how he defines success. And it has nothing to do with winning. He says success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing that you did the best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. So what does success look like? And you know, and I'm a basketball player, so I'll start out with it. You know, success is spending hours in a hot, humid gymnasium, putting up thousands of shots every day, so that one day down the road, you might have the opportunity to make that game-winning shot. Success is spending hours every day in the library, the classroom, the laboratory, week after week, month after month, year after year, before you might get the opportunity to perform that life-saving surgery.
Yeah.
Success is working hours and hours of overtime, in many instances to the detriment of your family or your health for months and years before you might have the opportunity to sit in that corner office and lead your business. Success is the work done behind the scenes that makes the competition easier. And here we go. And the vast majority of people aren't willing to put in that amount of time for a potential unknown outcome. The San Francisco 49er receiver, Jerry Rice, had another great quote. You can tell I love quotes. And this is what he said. He said, today I will do what others won't so that tomorrow I can do what others can't. If you want to succeed in life, you can't be the reason that prevents that achievement. You have to be willing to do the things necessary to become great with the realization that success still may never materialize for you. But here's what I'm going to say to you about that. If you have even a small amount of grit to pursue your goals, you'll be so much farther ahead than the vast majority of people who never start to chase their dreams. You'll have a better shot at reaching your goals because, frankly, there'll be so little competition out there. So I always tell people, get out of your way and do what you know you need to do to become successful. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of
But of course.
what I was thinking when you said that.
That all the time.
Yeah, no,
right?
we talk about that all the time. And one thing that I encourage people to do when they have a goal is don't think so much about the goal right now. What can you do today to get closer to that goal? And even if you apply 10 minutes of your time researching a new job, for instance, just looking at possibilities, just talking to somebody who will open up your mind to maybe an idea that will spark something to get you closer to that goal. Whenever you apply something every day while people are dwelling on their past, their situation, their childhood history, whatever it is that their struggles, while they're dwelling on that, you're getting closer to your goal because you're applying one thing per day. And then in a month, you're a month closer to it. 3 months, you're 3 months closer to your goal, whatever. And then eventually you're going to surpass that goal and you're going to be like, wow, wasn't that hard after all? But it's because you applied something. You just try to put a bit of energy into creating or getting closer to that goal. And there's a podcast that I did with Jacques Dallaire. He's a performance coach in the States, and he trains like Marines and Army, personal law enforcement, and top athletes, Olympic athletes and race car drivers. And he has a very basic equation that sums it all. And it's A times B equal results. So the A factor is what you can put into bring to the table, mainly what you can bring to the table to get that result. The B factor is what you cannot control. So in terms of racing, that could be the temperature, the tire exploding, the engine blowing up, whatever, things that happens that are out of your control. And both of them, A times B, will equal the results. But when you focus on the fear or on the results, you're not applying yourself to A. Now, your brain can only focus on what you think about, what you're putting your energy into. So if you're putting your energy into fear or into the results, well, you're disregarding A, and A is all you control. A is what can you do to get to that goal. So what he kind of says is don't think about the result. Apply yourself to the best that you can, and you'll get the best results that's possible. And we're all guilty of that. We all think of the results. Totally. I do like shooting competition of IDPA. That's something in the States you might be aware of with pistol competitions. So I do that. And when I don't apply the principles of shooting to that single bullet I'm trying to line up at the target, and I'm thinking about the next target and the door I have to open and the proper target down the road and the results, and I look at other people, like I don't apply the principles, I miss my shot. So I have to refocus, apply the A part of the equation 100% to the best or my abilities. Therefore, when I apply myself step by step, every single bullet, therefore the result will be the best that it can be. But I have to disregard that, and your mind will drift away and try to bring you to fear. And what if I miss my shot? What if I'm not fast enough? What if? So I think to come back and sum it all, people are always in the what if, and they're not into the what can I do?
Well, I used to always tell my players when I coached, I said, the only two things that you can control are your attitude and your effort. You know, you may go out there tonight and you may have the best form, but not one single shot's going to go in. Or the refs may have a terrible night, and you're sitting on the back. Whatever you can't control any of that.
And
you can control your
factor,
attitude
right? So,
and your effort. Yep. And that's all you can control. So go do that and live, like you say, in the present. Don't, you know what? Oh, I missed that last shot. You're living in the past now.
Yeah.
You know what? The game's going on right now, but your mind's
still there.
Yeah. Your mind is, I missed that shot. I should have missed that shot, or I missed that free throw, right? Whatever. No,
and you're going to miss all the other ones because you're still thinking about your focus is not there anymore.
Exactly.
And I'm such a victim.
Exactly.
Well, we're all victims of that. And I think that it's great to at least understand those principles so that you can be aware of them. Like just me and you, and, bring that awareness to the audience. It has changed my life. And when I actually can catch myself doing those things and bring back my focus, and it happens pretty much every day and in every uncomfortable situations, it will show up. And now, like you said, you can control your mind, you can control your reactions and everything. And that's something that we're all capable of. And people don't understand the power that they have within, and we have all the tools to succeed within ourselves.
Yes.
And when we apply those tools and we just a little bit of self-confidence and self-love, we're going to succeed, or get closer to it at least. And that's going to be way better than anything else. So
absolutely.
Yeah. But seriously, your story is so inspirational. And I mean, like, wow. Like it's touching, I'm a cancer survivor myself, and I'm out of it. Right. So I'm totally cancer free right now, but for you to be able to bring like that energy and that positiveness into your life, and you're still battling this, not knowing where it's going to go. And you're doing those clinical trials that are clinical trials. You don't even know if they work. You don't even know if that's going to give you worse results or better, but you're trying to contribute into advancing whatever's out there for the next guy after you that's going to have, or next girl, or whoever's going to have that type of cancer, which is a pretty uncommon cancer to start with. On that journey, what was your biggest breakthrough? What was the off factor, or what is there something specific that struck you? You were lying down in bed or something, and you're like,
you want to be positive, as we talked about. You want to say, I'm going to beat this and stuff like that. And then, I remember when it came back. 5 years of having the flu every week. And I try to get people to think about that. We've all had the flu.
Yeah.
Imagine having it every week for 5 years.
That's awful.
And then saying, and then saying it was really all for naught, because the cancer came back.
Yeah.
As soon as I got, I was off that treatment, the cancer came back.
Yeah.
So it was, and I remember when I got the results from my doctor, and my wife was sitting out on the back porch, and I just kind of went to the door, and I'm like, it's back, and I just turned around and walked away. And I mean, I know it crushed her, but it was, I was all like, kind of like you, this is going to be behind me. I'm done with this. Nope. Here it is again.
Yeah.
Welcome to life. Pull up your pants, put on your big boy pants, whatever you want to say, you're going to have to face this again. And then it happened again. And then it happened again. And then it happened again. And, eventually I just got to the point where, kind of like we talked about before, okay, this is pain, but this is mental pain. Yeah. This is life screwing with you. It's like, and you can say, life's not fair, but nobody ever promised that life would be fair. Absolutely not.
That's
so,
true.
why after everything I've done right, I've eaten right, I've exercised, I don't abuse alcohol or drugs, I don't, all that stuff. Yeah. Why did I get this?
Yep.
And that question literally lasted in my mind about half a second. I never, I never blame anybody. Amazing. I don't blame God. I don't, I'm not mad at God because I got this. I am the person I am in a lot of ways because of cancer. I am a better person.
You are.
This is going to sound crazy.
No, but you are.
Because I have cancer and because I'm dying.
Yeah.
I am a better person because of that. And people later say, well, how can you possibly be better? Because it forces me to focus on the things that are important.
Yes.
Family, friends, love. I mean, if I could put more love back into this world, and people, especially my cop friends, are like, what are you talking about love? It's like, we see so much helplessness
Yes.
and hopelessness in our lives
Yes.
as cops that you want to put as, let's find the opposite of that and let's get that back into the world, not take it out.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that aha moment was like, this isn't going to end. You're probably going to die.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. So bring it on. And that was really, I kind of figured I wanted to beat it. Yeah, I was going to beat it. And maybe I still will. And I will continue to try to beat it.
Yes.
But I've also accepted the fact that if this is the end for me, I'm okay with that. And I am okay with that because I found my purpose and I lived it.
Yep.
So I've done what I'm supposed to do here. Now it's time to move on to whatever is next for me. And I believe there is something next. But some people don't. I get that. And I'm not trying to tell you that you're wrong. I'm just trying to tell you that for me, there's got to be more than this. I mean, when you see your baby born, that was an incredible moment for me. I mean, cutting the cord and being there and thinking you are now responsible for this human being. And when I live near the Rocky Mountains, when you look at the Rocky Mountains, when you see a herd of elk moving through the snow, you're like, tell me there's not a God. Tell me this beauty and this greatness. I'm sorry, we're too fallible. We're not good enough to come up with this on our own. Something better than us had to come up with this. So I guess I just realized that, you know what, it is what it is. It's going to happen. I'm probably not going to beat it. I'm going to try to beat it, but I'm going to keep moving forward with whatever time I have left.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, as long as you don't quit, you're not defeated, right? You're still battling it and you're making the most of it along the journey.
Yeah.
Instead of just, dwelling on it. Like I said, you're creating something, you're helping people, you're motivating people.
Yes.
And I mean, that's just.
And this is a legacy that will be in your honor, though, forever. Look at this book you wrote.
That's out there forever.
Forever. Like, that's unbelievable.
There's going to be one person that might be suicidal one day is going to grab the book.
That book.
You'll be dead. You're in 100 years from now.
Even 100 years from now. And it's, that difference that you're still making and you're not even here on the physical earth. So I
had an 87-year-old man who read the book and came to me and said, I wish I would have had these principles when I was younger.
Oh, I know.
And I thought, okay, that's great.
But at least he read it at 87.
Exactly.
It's not too late. He still read it. And I'm sure he still learned a lot from it, so that's amazing.
Exactly.
And thank you. I'm definitely going to read it myself.
For sure.
Well, I appreciate that. It's funny because my mother, who is 85 and who has dementia, you think, I'm an author, I wrote a book. And then your mother says, I didn't think you were smart enough to write a book. So your mother kind of puts you right in your place.
Yeah. Again, humbles you.
Thanks, Mom. Love you to death.
Yeah, totally. Amazing.
And how hard was it for you to write a book? I'm in the process of writing my own, and sometimes I'm procrastinating. Yeah, on getting going, and like it's hard to put your ideas on paper. Talking about it, I could talk about it forever, but trying to put it in sentences that make sense and stuff for people to catch on to. What's your process in terms of that? Like, what was
my process was pretty simple. I just had two rules. Number one, I would write one page every day.
Okay.
There you go.
Except Sunday. I took Sunday off, but I would write one page, a minimum of one page every day.
Okay.
And number two, I would not edit anything until I had written the first draft of the manuscript. And I know there were days where I wrote a page of garbage. I'm like, this will never make it in. This is terrible.
Tell me about it.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
But you know what? The next day I wrote something better.
Yeah.
And and then maybe the next day I wrote something that was garbage, but the next day I wrote something better.
Yeah.
And if you just keep chugging along, and I can't tell you the number of people who are like, I want to write a book. It's like, talk to me when you write it. Everybody wants to write a book.
It's not easy.
When you do it, when you sit down there and you discipline yourself enough, and Matt, you're a cop, you're a disciplined guy. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to spend 30 minutes, whatever your parameter, I'm going to spend 30 minutes every day writing. Mm-hmm. And like you said, this is crap. It's never going to make the book. Mm-hmm. But the next day, it's good and you feel good about it. Mm-hmm. So that was really my process. It wasn't any, and eventually I had a book, and eventually I'm like, oh God, no, that's not good, and you're throwing stuff out, and then you come to edit it. But I was I didn't want to keep editing as I went. I just
No.
get it down
Mhm.
Get it
and then
done
start
and
playing
then look
with it.
over
Mhm.
and change
Yeah.
a few things.
Yeah. Just, and then you can say, oh, you know, I'm going to move this over here, or I want to, you know, I want to throw this out, or this doesn't matter. And,
Mhm.
and when you get to that point, you know, if you have a manuscript, I have a great guy who, he and his wife, kind of a funny story. He was a police chief in Louisiana,
Okay.
and a buddy said to him, hey, will you come out to California and put on a presentation for authors who want to understand the tactics of law enforcement so they can put those into their books? You know, yeah, sure, it's California, you know, I'll go out and have a good time. And he ended up meeting his wife out there, and his wife has written 34 best-selling fiction books.
Unreal.
So they get together and they start a not-for-profit publishing company. So
Wow.
they're not looking to make money. They're just looking to cover their
Wow.
costs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Super nice
Wow.
guy, but he has editors. And when I went through the book, you know, I sent it to him, and the
Yeah.
editors would come back. It's like, yeah, I don't think this should be in here. Or, you know what,
Okay.
you need to develop this more. Or you need,
Or
Yeah.
and they'll do that for you, you know, and that's what you're paying them for, you know,
Yes,
that's what they do. That's their
Yep.
living,
Yep.
and they're
Yeah.
good at it. And, you know, and I was like, no, I want to leave that in. And they're like, think about it, you know, sleep on it and see what you think, you know, and they were almost always right.
Wow.
You know, it's like, take that out or put this in or
Yeah.
develop this more,
Wow.
whatever. So
Yeah, send
it's a process.
I'll put it out there and I'll keep it for myself too. So it'll be in the podcast description. Maybe it's, you know, that can help your friend as well, right? His
Absolutely.
business, and it's
Mhm.
going to help myself because
Mhm.
once I'm done with mine, I'm going to get some editing done for sure.
Sure.
And
Sure.
yeah, well, your website is motivationalcheck.com. Your book is it on Amazon right now? Where's your book? We're getting
It is. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's on Apple iBooks. It's pretty much anywhere online
Amazing.
that you can get
Okay.
a book. You can get it.
Okay, so I'll
Amazing.
put the link down in the description of the podcast for
Mhm.
people to click on it and quickly access your book, because people are all about those quick
Thank you.
links and how to get stuff done fast. eh?
Perfect. Thank you.
Before we wrap this up, if there's something you'd like to share with our audience, maybe just take 1 minute to share anything that can brighten their day.
Sure. I'll share this story with you.
Okay.
Go.
I've always been a big fan of Westerns growing up. You know, my parents would let me stay up late and watch, you know, Wild Wild West or Maverick and Gunsmoke and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
1993, the movie Tombstone came out, and it starred, you've probably seen it. I mean, it's kind of a classic. It starred Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp and Val Kilmer as John Doc Holliday. Now, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were two living, breathing human beings that walked on the face of the earth. They're not made up characters for the movie. And Wyatt pretty much was a lawman his entire life. And Doc, they called him Doc because he was a dentist by trade, but he was pretty much a card shark and a gunslinger. But somehow these two men formed a friendship. And at the end of the movie, Doc is dying at a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is about 3 hours from where I live. Doc Holliday did die in that sanitarium, and he's buried in the Glenwood Springs Cemetery. And actually, that's one of my bucket list things to go out and to see that. But in this particular scene, Wyatt is destitute. He has no money, he has no job, he has no prospects for a job. So he comes every day to play cards with Doc to pass the time. And the two men are talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, you know what? I was in love with my cousin when I was young, but she joined a convent over the affair. And she's all that I ever wanted. And he looks at Wyatt and he said, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt looks at him and says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal, there's just life. And get on with living yours.
Mhm.
And I think that's such a powerful statement. You know,
So true.
would I like to not have cancer? Oh, God, you have no idea
Of
what I would do to
course.
get rid of this.
Oh, I'm sure.
But this is my life.
Yeah.
These are the cards that I've been dealt
Dealt with.
and I have to play them.
Play it. You do.
So just remember that for your audience. You know what? There is no such thing as a normal life or a
No.
better life. If
No.
you want life to be better, then you've got to be better.
You got to fucking put in that work. Sorry to swear.
You absolutely
to make
do.
it better.
And you do. And you
Yeah.
know, and I always tell people, I always ask people, and that's one of the things I may add to my post-it note,
Yep.
is what's your legacy going to be? At your funeral, what are people going to say about you?
Yes.
And I always tell people,
yes.
make sure your life is predicated on the decisions that you made,
Yes.
not on the ones that you didn't or the ones that other people made for you.
Yep.
So I'll end it with that.
That's
I love it,
awesome.
and
Thank you
it's
so much,
amazing.
really.
Yeah.
Terry, it's been an amazing podcast. I
Yeah.
mean, time flew by. We're almost like an hour and 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
we could keep going, but I mean, you're such an amazing guy.
You
and
are
your story's so
such
touching.
an amazing, beautiful soul. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And we really appreciate
You've
that
touched
took the
my
time.
heart, and
Touched mine too.
honestly, you've made an impact on me today like you wouldn't believe. So thank you so much, Terry.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. And, you know, you're doing a great job at getting the message out to people. So thank you for doing what you do as well.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Terry. So until next time, bye everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks again.